This is Power 102 Digital Tuesday. I'm David McIntyre. And today, for Hard Talk, I have with me my host, Karen Nunez Tesheira. Expecting to have with us Renwick Campbell and, of course, Keith Hurwitz on the program today. Good afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon to you, David. And I am the host. I think you are the host, but you're so kind to give up your Tuesday because, as we know, yesterday was Diwali and Shubh Diwali, belatedly, because we
Yeah.
didn't have a show yesterday because of the holiday. But Shubh
Mm,
Diwali to all our brothers and sisters of the Diwali faith, and
yeah.
makes Trinidad and Tobago what a wonderful country it is. Complex, challenging, but we wouldn't exchange it for anything.
At all.
Yeah. So you
Well, how
did
was
say,
everybody
but you
on
didn't say you're going to be my co-host too
the program?
in a very real way. You
Okay,
know,
I'll be. I'll
uh,
be. I'll be.
of course, it's your show, Hard Talk. Hmm.
Yes.
Hard talk. Well, I don't know how much hard talk we're going to get, but I hope we get some talk that is going to help and inform,
Hmm.
illuminate, and give a point of view that perhaps many of us may not have. And that is really the talking point for today,
Yeah.
which I think we had spoken about it off here before on other occasions. And it all starts as Labrie. And we know Labrie is near and dear to David McIntyre's heart because that is
Hmm.
where David McIntyre is from. But I Karen Teixeira, are not too far away from it also because
Yeah.
grew up in my formative years in the Deep South. And for 3 years, when I was going to high school in San Fernando, I passed the break through those roads that shifted constantly. I mean, from one day to the next, you didn't know what side of the road. We had a driver called Shady, and he didn't know which side of the road that Shady would have to drive on to take
Yeah.
us into San Fernando. So I am very familiar with Vestini. I mean, Mahika. I mean, I am
Hmm.
familiar because those are my childhood days. But
Yeah.
enough of that, so I have that connection that David has. And of course, we have our special guest, Renwick Campbell. Now, Renwick Campbell, we're very happy to have him. Let me just say a little bit about him, and then our last guest, which David mentioned, and of course, he himself in this role today. And Renwick Campbell says that he spent the greatest portion of his life in Labrie. So he is not a lifetime resident, but most of his life, certainly. And if that was not enough, I mean, for you to think that he is a Trudean, if that is a word, he has worked in the oil and gas industry for over 15 years. But more importantly, he has been involved, at least for the purposes of this show, involved in community work for the past 8 years. He has held the role of the village council president and public relations officer, chairman of the committee for sustainability, which is what our topic really is going to center around, and community development. And currently, he's chairman of a non-profit organization for social issues within the Labrie district area. So we know that Labrie does have has its issues, as you would need to have this NPU to operate, and we're happy to have him. Also joining us today by phone is a Mr. Keith Herbert. He represents the trade union, and that trade union of we're talking about Lace Asphalt 1978 Limited, and that is the trade union that represents the Lace Asphalt workers, and that is contractors and general workers trade union, well known to all of us. It's a well-known trade union, and he's joining us by phone today. And of course, I think a lifetime resident, are you not, David? A lifetime resident of Labrie?
Yes, I'm a lifetime. I am a lifetime resident. Yes, I am a lifetime resident of Labrador.
Have it on all of us. All of us can say that. None of us can say that. I don't know if Mr. Herbert can say that, but anyway, we know that David McIntyre is a lifetime resident of Labrie, has worked in the
Mhm.
industry most of his life until he decided to go into the media, and certainly is very familiar with Labrie and the asphalt company, Lake Asphalt, both from a technical perspective, and that is what I'm happy to have him here on the show to help us to unpack that part that I think people, maybe I'm the only one that doesn't seem to understand it clearly, but that bitumen. Before we go on to that, I'll just say what was the trigger, and then I will ask our guests first to identify what they consider that would be Renrick Campbell, what he considers, and then we look at the particular problems or the issues confronting Lake Asphalt and the trade union's perspective, and I'll let him speak on it. And then, of course, David will put in his the part that I would like him to explain very much for all of us is the
Mhm.
difference between the asphalt, or pitch as he calls it, and the bitumen, and why the bitumen is so important. So,
Well,
what was the
before
trigger? Let
before
me
we
just start with that and move over.
I lost the link with Renwick for a
Yeah.
while. He said he's having a little problem. He'll get back in a second. So we'll chat in the meantime. I'm trying to link up
Okay.
with Keith Herbert too. You can ask me anything. Let me see if I can carry on with you until
Yes.
our special guests come back in.
I know you can. I know you're more than capable, Mr. McIntyre. I'm calling you that today. I'm a lifetime resident. But let me just say what was acted as a trigger in Newsday, which
Mm,
said headline the price of progress. And it said the brave businesses hit hard as highway opens. And the highway they're referring to is the highway from San Fernando to Point Fortin. So I want to
yeah.
say at the get-go, lest there be no misunderstanding. No one, and we went down the traveling time on the highway San Fernando to Point to San Fernando by up to 40 minutes, and that is a significant decrease in traveling time on the roads. So there's no question that that is a positive thing for the country and for persons who live who work in the LNG sector. There's a lot of the petrochemical activity occurs in the southwest peninsula of Trinidad, just like it does
Hmm.
in that part of Trinidad. So we understand that is part of what was required. The issue that we're going to discuss, I want to focus on and get some insight from all the our guests today is that did you know you're opening up that highway has been on the card so many years, even before good afternoon, Mr. Campbell. Glad you
Good afternoon.
our listeners, our partners, as we I want to say digital all over the world. And I introduced you as you're almost there.
I'm losing your audio in and out.
Whose audio? Mine?
I'm hearing you now.
Oh dear me, well, I'm hearing myself so clearly. So I won't do well, I'm not being heard. In any event, what was the kind of trigger for today's show was the headline in the Newsday about the price of progress. They're talking about the highway. And there was an article talking about how it has impacted scores of vendors. A lot of persons who ply their trade, whether it was vegetable stalls, whether it was fruit and vegetable stalls, whether it was selling roti or other, other foodstuffs, what we call street food that we all love, along the Bray area, that road that we would have to have passed before, and that even the National Petroleum, the gas station, he has lamented that business has been cut by 50%. Getting taxis has become even more difficult, and they have to travel to Gonzales. And generally, what they're saying is that Le Bray has been turned into a ghost town. So, having said that, um, what we want to look at and what my trigger for this show was that this is not only Lake Aspel, which we will start with, but it's also La Bidco. It's also, in a way, the Caribbean Gas and Chemical Company Limited. Um, it's all of these things. And the fact that, more importantly, that when the highway was being built, was being conceived, was being built over those years, the promises that were made, yes, promises were made as late as April 2022, that the Prime Minister himself made, saying that he understood the impact of the highway and what it would mean to Labre. I have a quotation. Let me just use it and then I will turn over to my guest. He said in April 2022, we are going to fix that. He's talking about the Labre problem. And we're going to create something sustainable. That's what he said. In the Labre and the Labre and for the Labre people and for the contractor and Tobago. He said one of the reasons for the potholes we cannot get bitumen to pave the roads. It can't be imported. That's what he said, huh? Because of the business model. We are dealing with that. And he with Labre, and they were doing it. This is nearly the end of 2023. Not sure that we have made much progress in that regard. And so we're going to start first dealing with the Lake Gaston, because that's the whole bitumen story. And if you don't mind, Mr. Campbell, before you give your input, as well as the trade union, as to how it has impacted the trade union movement and persons employed at Lake Asphalt, I have asked David to please explain for the listeners the difference between the asphalt and the bitumen, because the impression, maybe I was wrong to get this impression, but I was getting the impression that the refinery, which has been closed down, Petrotrin, would sell the bitumen to Lake Aspen. And I used to wonder, so why are they selling the bitumen to Lake Aspen? Why don't they just sell it themselves? So I never could understand that. Why are you selling bitumen to Lake Aspen if you already have produced it? But of course, that is not a correct understanding. So I'm asking David, if you don't mind, if first to tell the readers, listeners, sorry, the difference between the pitch lake that is very famous from Walter Raleigh, using it to caulk his ships, and what is the difference between that pitch or tar and that bitumen, which is so critical to road paving for the airport runways and a number of road roadway activities. So just give us a distinction, if you don't mind. We could start with that, and then we can move on, perhaps to the impact this has had. And the union leader can speak, union person, sorry, not leader, union rep can speak to that. And then, of course, Mr. Campbell can give us an insight on how the work that he has been doing within the Labre community, starting with Ligas, so we're starting there, and what has been the impact of that work, if any, on making the lives and the economy of that area so badly hit more recently by the highway. So, David, if you don't mind, could you explain to our listeners the difference between what is bitumen, what is the thing that comes out of the pitch lake, and just explain it to us.
Okay, well, first of all, let me put it in this way. Bitumen is a downstream product from the pitch in its raw state. When it's in its raw state, they mine it on the lake itself. They take it to the lake asphalt company where there are stills, or we can simply use the refining stuff of the pitch lake. They take them to the stills. It's like boiled and all the
What are
impurities.
you taking this? I thought you told me flux. Flux
No,
that
no.
they take. Did you tell
Well,
me something
we are
like
not. We are
flux
not.
from the
We are not yet.
petrotrin?
Well, we have to
Okay.
start with the raw pitch itself before we get to the flux oil. So we go to the pitch
Okay.
lake. You'll see them mining the
Okay.
pitch, and with dump trucks and stuff, they will take it to a refining process, if I should put it simply for people to understand. In Lebre and around the area, we know them as stills. So the raw pitch will be taken to the stills, where they are dumped into the stills, and the still will heat it up to like boiling point. And after that stage, It's poured out into barrels. I understand that they're using steel barrels along with hardboard barrels, and that product itself is what they export. Now, that same product in its molten stage will be um, incorporated or added with the flux oil that we get from, like, before Petrotrin refinery was closed down, we got the flux oil from the Petrotrin refinery. So to come to bitumen, we must first have the refining or the boiling or distilling of the raw material, and then in its liquid state, flux oil will be added to it, and we get the product bitumen. So bitumen now is used by
Right.
by
So
by road paving companies who will add the aggregate and gravel and stuff to put on the road.
and the
Right? So
role of the bitumen does, what is the bitumen do?
well, it's a
What is
binding,
the
it's a
role of the
binding.
bitumen then? Why is it so important?
Well, it's the binding agent for the aggregate, and it solidifies when it's put together and mixed with the aggregate, the gravel, and all of that. So when it's put on the road after a period of time, it solidifies, and we get that smooth road surface.
So without the bitumen, let me just get this very clear,
Hmm.
because just be I hope Mr. Campbell, please bear with me, because I think sometimes, at least they seems to be used interchangeably, and it's as if the bitumen is what you got from the refinery.
Pitch link?
It's not bitumen; it's flux oil
Yes,
from,
flux
sorry,
oil.
from the refinery.
Okay, let me
From
explain
the
what
refinery, it's not
let me explain what
came
flux oil
coming from
is.
the
Right?
refinery.
Let me explain what
Mhm.
flux oil is. When
Right.
refineries refine crude oil in its raw stage, there are different levels that we'll have drawdowns from. The bottom level is where we get bunker C. Then we have heavy or heavy diesel, and then we have light diesel. Then we have kerosene, gasoline, methane, and it goes up with the lighter stuff at the top. The bunker fuel, which is the bottom fuel, the residue of the refining of the crude, that will be refined. Whatever moisture, whatever is in it that is not needed to become flux oil, it will be further refined in the refinery, and it comes to this flux oil state. It's highly flammable and all of that. It's something that you have to be very careful with when we get to the flux oil stage, and they will store it, and to have it usable, it will be stored under some sort of heating component, like steam. They'll have steam lines running all through the bottom of the tanks and stuff that will keep it in a liquid state. That will be added to the liquid asphalt will be added to that flux oil to come up with the bitumen. So it's more in a liquid-like stage
Right.
as bitumen. And then the paving companies or companies that do the mixing of the aggregate with that flux oil, and that's what we use to pave the roadways. So it's from the raw pitch
Right. So,
in
ladies and
to
gentlemen, we got a lecture now, and what we know is that the closure of, bottom line, is that the closure of Petrotrin could resulted in the inability to create bitumen, and the bitumen is absolutely necessary as a binder for the all the stone and aggregate they use in road paving. And that is why we have so many potholes. And more importantly, that is why, from my understanding, let's get, is the trade union, is Mr. Hubert with us?
not as
Because
yet. I'm trying
I
to
would want him to, yes,
I'm still trying to get in
is he
contact.
there?
No, he isn't here as yet. I'll let you
Well,
know
Mr.
when he
Campbell, I don't like to have you sit on anything. But what I did learn, and you can help us here, what is the real travesty? Either it's incompetence, or it's either sheer incompetence, negligence, or a lack of or indifference. That if you have with illegal for 90,
I think we're losing you a bit.
1978 Limited, which is state-owned, majority. What's that?
I lost
You're
part
not
of what you
hearing
were
me?
saying. I'm hearing you now.
I said that what I yes. So what I'm saying is this, and I'm going to ask you now. At the end of the day, having gotten that explanation, what we do know is that by closing down the refinery, it didn't just send home the people who worked in the refinery in terms of refining the crude oil, but it had a direct impact on Lake Asphalt because Lake Asphalt, as from the explanation that we just had from David McIntyre, the bitumen is key to road paving and
Yeah.
a key ingredient in the creation of what eventual product called bitumen is that flux oil. And the where we got the flux oil was from Petrotrin. With the closure of Petrotrin, that flux oil, however, they treat it at the Petrotrin side, is no longer available. Because it's no longer available, we can no longer produce bitumen, which, from my readings, really made up 70 to 80% of the revenue of Lake Asphalt. Although it does produce a critical importance of bitumen to Lake Asphalt and therefore to the people, I think over 200 workers in different capacities, some of them casual and some of them full time, who work there. So I don't know what your views are, but to me, and I would like to hear them, but it seems to me that when you were building that highway and when you were closing down that refinery and when you were saying you're not forgetting La Brea and you understand all what you understand, it seemed like you really didn't. Because if you did understand it, we would not be having this discussion today where you could effectively say that Lake Asphalt is a ward of the state. And I want to know what your views are. Is there some explanation that defies my logic that tells me that you could make that type of decision without putting in place some real, meaningful alternatives, sustainable alternatives for the people of La Brea, even before the highway, where the highway is part of it. Asphalt, Lake Asphalt, and refinery, all of them, all three come together. But the highway was the last piece of the puzzle. So I'd like to hear your views on that. I mean, was that should that have happened in the first instance?
So, having been in the oil and gas industry for a while and actually starting my working career at Lake Asphalt, I would have kind of seen um, the where Lake Asphalt was at a point in time, and just in terms of the persons in the community now and their experience, especially during that COVID period where things slowed down to the point where a lot of people were unemployed for a while. You can see the knock-on effect of closing of Petrotrin on the community as well as on the company, Lake Asphalt, the company itself. And I think that when it comes to Lake Asphalt, when it comes to the community of La Brea, that a lot of what we experience, or a lot of what we're experiencing, has many factors, right? Some political, some social, some strategic in terms of the way that things were planned and things were done, and these items not working in tandem and cooperating with each other in order that we have a strategic plan before things are done. For example, for Lake Asphalt, Lake Asphalt is Lake Asphalt 1975 Limited. Lake Asphalt has been in operation for many, many years. Lake Asphalt is one, when you hear of the history of Lake Asphalt as a company, you know that it has played significant parts in many international projects. And you know they boast of being the pitch being used to pave the Olympic Stadium in China and different large projects around the world. However, when it comes to the investment in Lake Asphalt as a company, even with bitumen being such an important part of their product line, the expansion and the diversification of a company such as Lake Asphalt having been in operation that long is not something that I think was made a priority over the years to try to bring Lake Asphalt up or to maintain Lake Asphalt as one of those top of the line companies, I would like to say. And it's not for lack of the employees, because we know that there are a lot of very hardworking persons within the companies. But generally speaking, we when I say we in our, I would like to say in our country, there seems to be a mindset of work to fail. We however it remains until it's broken and then we get a new one. So for persons who have lived within the community of Library for many years would remember when the Lake Asphalt Company was basically like it stood as one almost on par with a BP or a BHP. There were golf courses around the facility. It was one of the brightest places to be within the community of Library, and Library as a community sort of reflected that positivity and that brightness that emanated from that area. And as time has gone on, and this is well before the closure of Petrotrin, we would have seen certain aspects of that being degraded, the closing of the golf course, the closing of certain aspects of Lake Asphalt, certain things that were supposed to start that didn't start, investments that were made that didn't basically come to fruition that should have taken the company to another level. And as time went by and things slowed down there, you began to see the knock-on effects of within the community as well. And again, these things may have many different factors, but when it comes to the focus that I think Lake Asphalt should have been given over the decades it has been in existence, you don't see that type of energy and focus and investment in the company that I think should have been there. And we are now seeing the effect of that with the inclusion of Petrotrin closing down and the loss of bitumen as part of its core business model.
Yeah, and that's well said. But I don't know what David has to say on that because I mean, you have said it, yes, but maybe I'm being sort of like an outsider. Both of you from Hillbury will of the revenue came from bitumen. Then I would say that's the business. I know they have Lasco black paint, Lasco this, Lasco that. They have I read about the asphalt pellets that, I know, and they have lots of patents. I know, I've tried to read up on it. But if I were looking at it from a employment and a business perspective, if 70 to 80% of your revenue came from bitumen and your bitumen depended on the flux oil from Petrotrin and you closed down Petrotrin, I mean, and then you had no plan, or at least you had some time, but you only want, you made the decision. Decision was made. I can't understand several years later why is it that that so-called new business model that they're saying, because it used to be part of energy and they moved it to works, where is it? What is, I mean, I am at a loss really, and I want maybe David could also chime in here because I then asked, because I was reading on the history of the gospel, very impressive, and made you feel proud of how this is the I think the largest naturally occurring a pitch or tar or I don't know whatever other words are used to describe it. I think in the world, if I'm not mistaken. But then you read about the asphalt pellets, and that was also something that they were also manufacturing and selling abroad. So
Well,
when they
okay.
no longer make the bitumen,
Well,
David, yeah.
the pellets were just pellet form of the same product they had put or they put in barrels to export. The problem that the arrive with the or that started happening in the production of the pellets, from what I can understand, is that they were using a powder to coat the pellets so that it would not bind while it's being shipped or during storage. But there are some of the markets were saying that the time the product got to them, it was binding. You know, the pellets were binding. So there was a powder that was used to sort of stop the binding of the pellets when they package it in these bags to ship. So as it is, that they had a pellet plant, as far as I know, they had a pellet plant, and it's not functional now. I can't say the reasons for it not being in function right now, but I know it's not in function now. So now the raw material, which is the same pitch or asphalt as people call it, is shipped in barrels. They are using steel barrels now, and they incorporate that with the original state of using the hardboard barrels, right? And they also have a paint plant, you know, where they produce black paint, seam sealant, pipe guard, UBC under body coating, thinners, and all of that. You know, so there are other downstream products that are manufactured or produced in the Lake Asphalt Company. But the pellets, it was just another form for export, just like the barrels, just that they were in pellet forms and they were being exported in bags and stuff. But I think the product there was the problem there is the binding of the pellets in storage and on its journey to wherever the market is
Shipping.
and stuff. So the pellet, but that part, that there's a pellet plant. There's also a paint plant, but the pellet plant is not functional because of that same problem.
Yeah, and I think I could attest to that because I was working in the company at the point in time when the pellet plant was being constructed, and that was the issue that they raised as being the cause of the stop. By the time they shipped from here to wherever it's going, the basically they would leave with a bag of pellets and get there with a slab, so that it was binding the process or the chemical that they were using to try to stop the binding wasn't working. So that is, and the paint plant is also one that would have been affected by the closure of Petron as well, because bitumen formed part of the product that it would have come out of the paint plant. Which, and as excellent as the product would be, once you lose that stream of, and what made this so important, what made the bitumen so important to Lake Asphalt, was the fact that we were buying it from our own refinery, getting it at well below market value, and being able to produce something that we could sell at higher market value and produce get a profit for the company. So taking that out of the equation puts the company under strain. But it also leads back, because I was, me being in the company when that was being constructed, I was 19 at the time. I'm 39 right now. That's 20 years ago. So within 20 years, the question is,
I'm not
okay,
going to tell you my age, though. Sorry for you.
it's quite all right. what innovation took place after that? You know, we yes, there are patents. Yes, there are things that could have been done if the pelletization process was working at the time. What was the next step? What type of investment was required to get the process to work? Because this is not the only country that produce some sort of asphalt products. There are countries and companies that produce paving aggregate, that produce it by the bag, that is separate by adding certain chemicals that you just pour it out on the ground and add some heat to it, and you have a paved pothole. Is it then that we are not, when it comes to our state-run companies, we are not treating it like how we would treat our private entities, where innovation and improvement becomes a core factor in the way that we operate? And is that push what is necessary now in order to get us over that line? Because Lake Asphalt has the potential, as you rightly said, it's the largest pitch lake in the world. It has the potential to be an international level company and operate on that scale. What is needed in order for us to get it from here to there? And I think that is where the push is supposed to be. That's where the conversation should be at.
and from my understanding, as you said that thing about, being state-owned and so on, I didn't intend to. I just happened to have the quotation in front of me because I wasn't going to really refer to it. This was an executive summary report of July the 18th by Dr. Terence Farrell chaired committee, which was very soon disbanded, I might add. And they suggested, they were talking about, an analysis of how Lake Asphalt was private, then it became state-owned. NGC has 95 point something percent ownership in Intyre Divest. So this is the quotation that I am using to, which really dovetails with what you were saying. He said, this is a quote, in the minds of citizens, state enterprises are seen as mechanisms for dispensing political patronage, as inefficient and loss-making providers of services, or as providing employment for certain sections of the government. And so it sort of dovetails into, the is it what is stopping the push? What is stopping? But were it privately owned? Would we be in this state? Because from you talked about, my understanding that Lake Asphalt was doing quite well and was turning quite a sizable profit until some years back. And I do know that I did read that there was a report that the last audited report account from Lake Asphalt may have dated back to 2017. Hope I haven't gotten it wrong, but I think it is 2017, but it's a good while now, anyhow. And we don't have an audited account of Lake Asphalt's business. But what we do know, and this was an article by Asha Javid in the Trinidad in the Express, I think last year. And I mean, she's repeating what I read elsewhere in any event, that it is a ward of the state because there's a subvention being paid, $1 million a month, coming up to $30 million a year to keep paying the subvention to these workers.
I'm losing your audio every now and then.
And no insult to the workers because it's not their fault. Don't workers do not take it as I am in any way casting blame on at all on you at all. You did not make those decisions. Those decisions were made at a leadership level. But what it has reduced you to, in my view, and I think people may look at it, is that when people talk about make work projects, it is, and it's going on for years. And by now, by now, by now, shouldn't you have been able to work out this new at first, I may get it wrong, but maybe the Prime Minister, I may have misquoted the Prime Minister, but he may have been saying the reason we have so many potholes is because we don't have the bitumen. But my understanding is that we have started importing Suriname, I think Barbados, and but it is not of the same quality. So when you combine it with the aggregate here, it does not stand up because it is not of the same level
I don't know why I'm losing your audio every now and then.
of point 14. I don't know, but I'm hearing myself so well.
It's breaking
So,
up somewhere in the line. But
oh my
what
God.
is happening? It's always it's always mind-boggling to know that the Lake Asphalt company is in the state that it is in now. I grew up, I live near the Pitch Lake for all the days of my life. All the time I've been there. At one time worked at the Texaco refinery in Brighton, and I worked at the lab. I worked at the refinery. As a matter of fact, I had reached the stage of oil stocks clerk and stuff in the refinery area there. And there were times when in the production of bitumen, they would have gotten the flux oil from that same refinery. So it's just like neighbors, a wall or a fence just separated asphalt from the Texaco companies. And I would have gone to the Lake Asphalt lab at one time to do some work when they were mixing, when they were putting together the bitumen, because from the Texaco refinery they would just pump across the flux oil that the Lake Asphalt company would have used to manufacture the bitumen. Now, as it is now, there were even instances where um, at a political level, um, some sort of maneuver, if I should call it like that, was initiated to have a downstream plant at the Point Lisas um, industrial estate. I know of that because some years ago they held this march around library, and the union staged the march, and I didn't know anything about the march. I was invited. I said, well, there's a march going around library, and in the media you're supposed to go and find out what's going on. So I ended up in the march. I'm that kind of community player. I ended up in the march as a person who will talk for the community. I wouldn't say a community activist. I advocate for library and the
You know
pitch.
that no, we're not hearing any of each other because I
You're not
can't
hearing
hear
me now.
David. Henry
Serious?
Campbell has disappeared from the site. Yeah,
And
no,
you still
now
heard
you
me?
serious. I heard the word serious.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm hearing David clearly, so and I'm still here.
We're
Yes.
hearing him. Okay,
Well,
when we don't see, no, we're not seeing David, but
yeah,
at
I'm
one
here.
point he broke up. But he said he
Yeah.
was said he would take part in the march, and he
Yeah,
did,
I'm
right?
hearing David.
Yes. Yes. So I took part in the march, and well, all midway during the march, I was asking him what the march is about, what the march is about. Well, eventually, I was told that the government at the time, that was the opposition now, at the time, they were saying that they had plans of putting up a downstream industry or a plant in the Point Lisas area where the pitch, the asphalt itself would have been used in creating a diversity of products, a lot of different products, because we know that the Chinese would import the asphalt, and it comes back to us in the form of battery casings and those kind of stuff. So I was made to understand that the march was about that, and they were complaining because most of the employees from a union perspective were stating that, you know, that government is planning to shift the company to Point Lisas, and some of them would have lost their jobs, and they didn't want that. And the talk was like they sell out to the Chinese, and that kind of talk. So I don't really I wouldn't settle for a rambling of different opinions like that. So I tried my best to get it from union reps and the people who staged the match. But all in all, it boiled down to they were going to put up this downstream plant in the Point Lisas area, and I don't think it was welcomed by the members of the union or workers by extension. But what I'm saying is that over the years, it was just like Lake Assault was just exporting the raw product. There was never no um, intention or nothing on the drawing board as to put in place um, factories or manufacturing plants that would produce these downstream products. It's long, long after I heard about the pellets, and when that failed, I think there was plans to have it put in powder form. Well, that never got off the ground. As far as I understand, that never got off the ground. When I talked to members
So
of the
there were some
union,
efforts then. So we're going to
yeah,
be fair. We're going to be
yeah,
fair and say
hmm
that
hmm
at least some type of effort was made to use the pitch lake. Um, this is before the petrotrain closed down. This is before the
yeah,
refineries closed down.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
That was before the
And then
contract.
after,
hmm
right. So that, and it hasn't worked out. But let me
No.
ask Mr. Campbell, because
hmm
that's the reality. And we could go to Labitco afterwards and the Caribbean Gas Company Limited, because we talk about Labrie and its environs. And okay, let me stick to the Labrie first, because it seemed to me there was a joint select committee meeting in 2019. And I know that you, as being a PRO, chairman of the Committee for Sustainability and Community Development, you would have had to be involved in looking at kinds of initiatives that one could put in place. And I know that David McIntyre was also very much involved, as also being very involved within the community. But from your perspective, in your formal capacity, what can be done now that nobody wants the factory, by the way? And why I say that, let me not make it such a definitive statement, but let me just say this. No one has offered to buy the refinery. And when Dr. Inchan Ali in Guyana, the Prime Minister of Guyana, was asked to send his crude oil, there was an offer to take the crude oil from Guyana to refine it in Trinidad. He said, and this is in the CARICOM report on energy and so on, we don't need that refinery. That refinery, but I know it's 100 years old, but I know all the refineries are 100 years old. I know a lot of it had been refurbished over time. But in any event, he said, by now, anyhow, it's too old. The cost to repair it is too much. And we only need one refinery, and we have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Dominican Republic. So we don't need your refinery. So it looks like that refinery is scrap iron in truth. I mean, if the older it gets, the more age it gets, the less it becomes attractive. And if Guyana, who is a CARICOM brother,
We're losing you
millions
again.
of whatever cubic feet of both now, and they're saying they don't want our factory. They say they don't want to send the oil to us. They'll build their own, and they only need one. They also told us in the report that they don't even want us to send our LNG trains over. I don't know how serious it was, but his response was, "That's too old now. To move that over to Ghana, we don't need your LNG trains. Leave it right there in Trinidad." And then the natural gas, which is at the heart of all of this, which is where we're going to talk about the Caribbean Gas Company Limited. We have to talk about them. What they're saying now, we know, and the Prime Minister has said it, not my words, the Prime Minister has gone on record to say that at the ultimate we had 4.1 billion cubic feet per day. The ultimate you wanted is 4.7 to be able to satisfy the downstream, the new, the iron pellets, and all the activities that they wanted to start, plus satisfy the LNG. And now we're down to 2.7 billion cubic feet per day. And although we have some from those they're not in the billions. And they're just simply not enough to satisfy the needs. So I am asking you, I mean, it just looks like this government has his head down in his deep, no, they didn't have a head, they had a whole body down in the sand. They had a head, the body, everything down in the sand. Because you cannot tell me that I am not in the Ministry of Energy and I don't have any information other than what I read in the papers, as everybody else, and what the Prime Minister says. And when the Minister of Energy, well, he said we had 4 trees when we only had 3. And then I think he said that we're going to get gas from Dragonfield in 2025, which is a big joke, because that ain't even near to coming to fruition because of the conditions that Biden has put and the way that, anyway, we can't go into all that discussion. But it takes 4 to 8 years. So I don't know how we could say 2025. Maybe it's because 2025 is election year. But when you say things like that to the public, what confidence I could have in you? I don't think people understand that when you are in government, you have a responsibility to the people who dip their finger in for you. And they put their trust and confidence in you. And they have to do that because they put you to lead and they put you in the driver's seat and they are the passengers. But they hope that you'll drive the truck, they drive that train or that whatever, that vehicle to the advantage of all the people. But when you see that we could reach a point in this country that that we have 2 points and you have a minister, listen, I don't know why I'm sure he said 2025. I'm an agreement. He said 2025. He doesn't even have an agreement. This is why this whole thing with, I may be going off a little bit on a tangent, but it really isn't, because it really is speaking to the kind of sheer incompetence, the sheer lack of planning, the sheer lack of implementation that this government has been responsible for the last 8 years. Even Dr. Ali, you know what he said? They making somebody told me they're making fun of us. I told the person you must not look at it that way because it's a CARICOM country and we should be glad to see our CARICOM brother and sister do well, because if they do well, we could benefit also, right? Within the region. And he said that we always diversified. Of course, they didn't have natural gas till 2013, right? But he said we always diversified. We had timber, we had bauxite, we had gold, he listed off. And we have land cardon. You know that that is Guyana, is now entering, from what I read on Kite News, unless it's not a correct thing, but I read it from Kite News 2 days ago, that they are, instead of offloading their cargo in Trinidad and then loading it back on a ship in Trinidad port and then sending it to Guyana, they are going straight to Barbados, who's clearing a whole berth for them so they can offload in Barbados the cargo and then take it straight from Barbados to Guyana, bypassing Trinidad. Do you know that they are building in Guyana $1 billion flour mill factory that they can that they are able to produce all different grades of flour for the market? I mean, how Ghana doing all of that when they just got gas? Why do they have those kind of insights into developing their economy? And we sitting down in this country knowing you have 2.7 billion, and that dragon field is not, we cannot depend on that, because Biden is playing with a gentleman who is trying to claim 2/3 of Guyana under some arbitral award. 2/3 of Guyana, which is a CARICOM country. So it really disturbs me. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Campbell, what is the answer for Lebre? Because Lebre is a good example of a government that did no planning, no looking at how, just talk. We will. I told him already. I already told David I want to make up a calypso. I cannot sing. I have a lyrics for them, And the lyrics is we shall, but don't hold your breath. I can't get the beat for the song, yeah? But sure that better than Red and Ready. But them not ready at all. Right? But they are, we will. We will put up the plyboard factory. We will take care of you. We will do this, we will. And everything we will do has not come to pass. How long are you going to tell us that? How many years? And it just hurts me to see that people in this country sit down there and take that, wake up and smell the coffee, because it's so obvious. So I'm asking you, now that I've given my little spiel on that, what is it that you can do really for Lebre, the tourism? What is it we can do for thing that can really work, and help Lebre with the employment and all of that, since you were so involved?
So that's a heavy question that you have placed on my placed on my plate. So let me try to tie what we were talking about in terms of Lake Asphalt with the question that you ask in terms of what we can do going forward, and then involve some of the organizations that are currently doing work within the community to try to come up with those same types of solutions. So for getting back to Lake Asphalt, when we look at what Lake Asphalt is, and I think that one of the that's part of the reason why Lake Asphalt hasn't, not Lake Asphalt, let me say the pitch lake hasn't been utilized its full potential. I think there's a certain level of identity crisis when it comes to the use of the pitch lake. On one side, it's the eighth wonder of the world. It should be a prime tourist destination for the country. And on the other side, it's an industrial site where we basically mine raw material for economic exploitation. And I think that we have not been utilizing either side till its full potential. On the tourism side, we supposed to at this point in time be marketing Lake Asphalt, marketing the Pitch Lake as a prime destination for tourists coming to Trinidad. Yes, we have the tours. We have persons who are trained in providing the tours to the Pitch Lake. But in terms of the industry that comes with tourism around the Pitch Lake, it doesn't exist. Where the food vendors, where the Airbnbs, where the other tourist style businesses that should feed in to such a large tourist destination. When you compare the Labrador Pitch Lake with, let's say, Los Angeles Tar Pits, and what they have done around something that is so much smaller than what we have, in terms of research and development, in terms of environmental park, in terms of just building out the tourism aspect of it, in terms of even the studies of the microbes that they find within the tar pits and how they have turned that into its own form of tourist industry where persons come in to see, they created a whole dinosaur park and everything like that with the bones that they would have discovered. We have something that has a lot more potential, but a lot less in terms of that investment to develop it as a prime tourism product. And that type of development is something that is needed and that can act as a buffer to a community that such as Labrie. Labrie has been for many decades an industrial community. Out of the Texaco days, as David would have mentioned, when Lake Asphalt was at its prime, and all the other industries that would have come into Labrie, the generations before ours would have this basically developed out of Labrie being an industrial community. That has gradually, but yet greatly reduced now. When you look at the level of employment that exists between the Union and Labitco Industrial Estates and the community of Labrie, the percentage of persons within the community that's employed by these industrial estates it's less than 10%. So you have a large transient population that goes out of Labrie in order to work, and persons that come out of Labrie to work in Labrie and then leave. So that microeconomy where you can have that circular economy of persons buying and spending within the community doesn't exist. And out of that, and again, those things have a lot of other factors that exist that make those things that the way that it is. For example, because of the pitch veins that exist around the pitch lake, when it comes to large scale infrastructure development, it's very difficult in terms of finding where those spaces can be. That is something that is actually being looked into now. And we're finding these spaces that can be developed to give us those things is something that I think should be a priority. Because when you really look at Labrie as a community, Labrie is ideally situated to be the logistics hub of the Caribbean. We are at a cove, a peaceful deepwater cove that can provide every service that is needed in a maritime industry. We have all that within the community. We are, when it comes to just Trinidad in general, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have storms. We are a generally safe space to be in. And these things can act as a diversified economy from the oil and gas that can provide us with the funds that we are losing through the slowing down of other industries. But those things aren't being looked at anyway, especially when it comes to the community of Labrie. Labrie does not have a downstream industry. So we have the plants, we have the industrial estate, we have the Labitco Union Industrial Estate and all the companies that are within it. Outside of the industrial estate, it's almost as though those estates are islands unto themselves within the community, because the interaction between the industrial estates and the community doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. Creating spaces where, given the opportunity, and that's a big thing, having the opportunity for persons to develop those businesses that can feed into the industrial estate would move Labrie from being what's in a semi-depressed state to one that is thriving. And those type of things are outside the realm of what the members of the community can do. What the members of the community can do and have been doing is that they've been coming together They have been working with each other to try to come up with things that they can do themselves, that we can do ourselves, in order to attract persons to the community through community-based tourism. A prime example was for emancipation.
Right.
Different entities came together. They decided to work
Definitely.
collaboratively, and they did excellent emancipation day. 3 days of events involving sports, farmers market, craft markets, concerts. It was We had hundreds of persons coming to Labra, and have persons within Trinidad who said this is the first time they've entered into the community of Labra. Very first time they came to Labra. So things like that and other initiatives that are being done within the community to try to build out micro industries, things that are along the lines of craft, along the lines of tourism, food, to get that type of money flowing within the community. It's happening, and I can say that we have had help from some ministries, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Sport and Community Affairs. They would have initiated the sustainability committee, and they would have hired consultants to come into the community and do two surveys, one on an economic survey and another currently running a social impact survey, especially when it comes to the dealing of the highway. Is it too late? Is it late? Yes. Is it too late? I don't think so. These things should have happened before, yes. Definitely should have happened before. When it comes to the strategic way that things should happen, and the having knowing this before it happens, it definitely should have. Instead of us feeling the effect and now trying to fix. And that didn't occur. But we are at the stage that we are now to try to fix it. And I must say, when it comes to the work being put in by the groups within the community, by the persons within the community who have that similar mindset, um, even in terms of some of the investment that we're getting from some of the industries within the plant, within the estate, it is now starting to occur. We're now getting that push. And having that ability to work together is really showing, it's making a difference. Another entity would have they would have come out from the industrial estate and invited all these NPOs, CBOs, faith-based organizations, schools to come together. We did a sort of a citizen jury type activity where we said, what do we need? We as a community, not looking at what the government want to give us, what other people say should happen. What do we as a community need? And from that, and from those discussions that took over a year of discussions, we developed this NPO that's called the Library Association for Innovation. And that Library Association for Innovation decided that our first project will be along the lines of education, because we realized that as much as we would want things of a larger scale, fundamentally, it comes down to the children within our community and ensuring that they are the level where they can compete in any other space within the country. Unfortunately, right now, some of the schools, especially the primary schools, are not rated among the best within the country. And we are working with a financial entity to make sure that we can have a level of intervention when it comes to that. That is a project that is in progress, and more information will be coming out as we launch. The launch will be soon. But you're getting that type of push. You're getting that
Okay.
type of.
Can I
Now,
Sure.
before
that
you
is good news.
before you
Except,
interject,
yeah, I was
Karen,
going to
before
ask.
you
Yeah.
one minute, Karen,
No, I
before
was
you
going to ask
interject,
you to interject. Actually,
yeah, along with what Mr.
I
Campbell is
want you
saying,
to interject, not me.
yes. Now,
I didn't.
okay, I am the president of the Pitch Lake Tour Guides Association, and I have put into a number of proposals already, a massive upgrading of the Pitch Lake and surrounding areas, which include the tower and other areas like Mr. Campbell said, B&B and the food courts and all of that. I have done a lot of work where that is concerned. As a matter of fact, I'm working with the TT Tourism and Visit TT arms of the Ministry of Tourism to get that up and running. And a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy and instead of dragging at the feet and thing is what is holding back on that push, which can I'm sure can employ 200 and 200 probably a meager figure as to the workforce or the labor the manpower, I should say, that it would be needed to make this thing a reality and to attract local and foreign tourists to the max. And I find like to every attempt the group try to make, something comes in the way like an obstacle to hold us back. So I was chatting with some people who said, you need to establish links. Well, then I heard of this Library Association of Innovation, which Mr. Campbell can um, tell more about. And I decided, well, the guy who called me is a good friend of Mr. Campbell's too, and he's sending some messages on the board here too. And I told him I want to be part of that. So we have to establish links so that it can be more impacting on the people who are in authoritative spaces. Now, that to me is what is being I wouldn't say it's negligence. I don't want to use big words like that, but for some reason there's this lack of interest by the people who holds the power and the reign, because the effects of the highway could be. I have a different view of the highway. It's important that it's good and all of that, but it just has taken away a lot of the traffic flow that would have passed through the village, and most of those people might have stopped to pick up something here and there. But if we can put together an entity like the Pitch Lake as a massive tourist
You're
destination,
positive.
that alone
It could be.
would bring a lot of people to Labrador. The highway has nothing to do with that. People will use the
I
highway
was
to even come to
thinking
Labrador.
that.
But I have a call on the line here who
That is
wants to
exactly.
make a. Yeah, let's hear this caller here.
Yes, go ahead,
And
caller. Yeah.
good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, my brother.
Yes, good afternoon.
And to your guests there, Karen, and the two other
Yes, Mr.
gentlemen
Campbell.
with
Yeah,
us.
Mr. Campbell.
You all opened the show by saying the road cannot be smooth because there is no bitumen to fix the road. Now, that is not correct. You have to understand how the pitch lake was formed. And let me give you a half a minute or less on that. The pitch lake is located in a geological formation called the Southern Basin at Brighton. And across the Southern Basin, there's a fault line that goes from Cedra to Guayagaya. What happened is the plate movement, the tectonic, the plate movement below the ground caused an upthrust, making the Southern Basin anticline. And in that, a vertical crack was formed where the bitumen, water, sulfur, and mud came up to the surface and formed the lake, which is about 100 acres. Now, with that vertical crack, there are associated transverse cracks. The transverse cracks is the problem in the whole library. You have thin sheets of bitumen lenses, which is flowing and is volatile, located on the surface. And if you put any weight on it, it will force out back the sheet and then it will become uneasy. So that's the first one. And that has a very important thing to do with the plant itself. Because the plant which is located on the perimeter of the pitch lake, any upgrade to the plant will require that plant to be relocated for sturdy ground. So I am saying that the plant should be taken further west on the Labre Industrial Estate so that we come out of those. There's some very stable ground where Atlantic LNG first wanted to put their plant. Now, the next thing I wanted to deal with is the asphalt and bitumen difference. The lake asphalt is naturally occurring bitumen that comes out from the lake. So when you take it out, it comes up with the sand. And when you warm it and it gets like water, when you carry it to the high temperature, it gets like water. You have to put stirrers in the storage tank so that the sand don't settle out. And then when you want to use it to pave roads, the plants that pave the road must have special nozzles and things to be able to spray this bitumen. Now, this bitumen has found its way all over the world in high-value projects, airports, highways. Right now, China is doing an airport, and they have an unlimited supply of lake asphalt for that airport. I don't know how they access it, how they get it. I think it was the sale from Kevin Ramline for the marketing. But like anything else, we have 53 state enterprises in Trinidad. And out of those 53 state enterprises, you could tell me which one is successfully surviving. and Labedco is among those 53 states. And so Labedco hasn't failed today. Labedco has failed from a series of successful governments coming up the line, right? But the good thing is there's a $770 million investment plan for the upgrade of Labedco. And because of that, Labedco is now shifted from Ministry of Energy to Ministry of Works under NIDCO with Esther Farmer as the CEO. Now, I am very much in favor of that because Esther Farmer is a very, very knowledgeable person and very hardworking person. And I could only hope that under her, a lot of things could happen, right? Now, the other thing is the Labre, when it was in full operations, the board had several committees, and one of the committees was a corporate communications committee. And the corporate communications committee had a budget set aside to interact with the community. So if you do not have an industry in place with no corporate communications representing the industry, you wouldn't have anything. Of course, in Labre, there are lots of other companies that should be much more active, like Atlantic LNG. They just was building a platform. The amount of money that was spent to build the fabrication yard, and then the people say, take your platform and go. That was not good. Then you had the Alutrin project. The amount of investment in the Alutrin. Right now we have $100 million claim for the Alutrin company. That alone would have provided employment for 1,000 people. Right? And that project,
the gentleman is calling us. I don't want to be rude or anything too, but you're being aware and all. But I just want to clarify something because now you've got me confused. One, I think we had but let me just clear up. You are saying that what's in the lake asphalt is bitumen, and therefore all that talk we just had about the flux and all of that is not correct. Is that what you're saying?
No, it is
because that's
correct.
what I understand you to be saying.
To a point,
So what
to
are
a
you
point,
saying?
it is correct.
That's
That's why I didn't.
What is it? Where? At what point is it correct that the closure of Petrotrin, from which they got the flux to combine with the pitch to make the bitumen? At what point is that correct?
Let me answer it. Trinidad Lake Asphalt does not have exclusivity in marketing bitumen. What they did do is that the Point 14 refinery used to supply them the bitumen from the plant as a byproduct of the refining, which was a quality bitumen called 60-70 penetration grade bitumen. And Labre used to sell that bitumen as one part. The other part is they used to make emulsions using the bitumen, and they used to sell the emulsions. The other part is when they make the lake asphalt. If the lake asphalt doesn't have the consistency in terms of the bitumen content, they could always use the 60-70 penetration grade bitumen to blend with the lake asphalt to bring it up to the specs.
Okay.
Now,
okay. Well, I think so I think what I understand you to be saying, and of course the best person to answer that, but I think we with all due respect, you have been a wealth of knowledge, but it's also added another layer of what is I can say complexity to it. But it has always been my understanding that the closure of the refinery has impacted the production of bitumen, which is used as a binder for road paving, and that remains. That is still the case.
I want to be fair
because if
with
it's
you,
not still the case, yes.
Labedco was already bad performing, coinciding with the closure of the Point 14 refinery first, and then subsequently the closure of the Intyre refinery, which was a lot of stupidness. Taking the bitumen from Point 14, from Intyre, carrying it Labre, and then from Labre shipping it back up north for the plants, the asphalt plants in north. It wasn't making sense at all.
Okay.
So now I am saying that the pitch at Labedco could stay in business like like the companies in the US, where one company is the home company and they have several companies distributed all over the US. But the problem with that is Labidco will have to put up 2 or 3 plants all over in the country where they could actually produce the hot mix and sell it for the road paving program that is coming on in Trinidad. So
Okay,
that
well,
is
I
one.
think I think you need to come on as a you need to come on as a consultant, but we have to move on from that if you don't mind. But you have
Yeah.
been
Thank you
very
for that.
helpful, except that, I suspect that there may be some there must be some. Obviously, you are very well learned on the topic. You've obviously worked in the industry, and I have a feeling you are qualified in the particular area. But I do believe at the end of the day, it is not wrong to say that had the refinery not closed, that the bitumen, which is seems to be still, even if it you are saying naturally occurred in the pitch day, it appears to me based on the explanation of Mr. McIntyre, worked in industry all his life and gave a very reasonable explanation as to saying that they did use the flux oil and mix the flux oil with the pitch that had to be refined and refined and refined. So I don't know if we could get anywhere with that, but it is up. And the Prime Minister himself has said himself, we don't have bitumen. Well, if we were getting it from the pitch lake alone, then we wouldn't have a problem. So the reason why we don't have enough bitumen, even if it had some bitumen, is because they didn't have enough bitumen because he said so. The Prime Minister said so. So the only reason we don't have enough bitumen is because they're not producing the bitumen. Because if it's naturally occurring to the extent to which it was commercially viable, then we wouldn't have a problem. But we do have a problem. And the problem is that, however, whatever goes into the manufacturing of the final product called bitumen, the flux oil from the refineries plays a part. Whether wholly, but insufficiently enough that the Lake Asphalt 1978 is a ward of the state. It cannot, it is owes $10.5 million in debt. But I think we moved on from that. I think Mr. Campbell and Mr. McIntyre, both of whom were making some excellent suggestions, because at the end of the day, it is what it is. And in fact, what Mr. McIntyre, and let him speak on more on it, he was saying that, in fact, the passage of the building of the highway can be a positive, because some people may not want to go down to Labrie because of that road. I live down in Point Fortin, and oh my gosh, to go to school in San Fernando, just when you reach by the pitch lake, you just reach, where you turn that corner, you reach by the pitch lake. You're going from one side of the road to the next side of the road, to the next side of the road, to up and down and up and
Yeah.
down. And
Mhm. Mhm.
my next week, it move again. The
Yeah.
next week, that is, I had that experience. So nobody telling me that. I experienced that as a school child. Going to when I say school child, I passed the common entrance stage. Until I was 14, I went through Labrie, and so I have experienced Labrie in those days. So it's no question about it. Where we are reached now, which I thought was a good point, which Mr. Campbell made, and which I think both he and Mr. McIntyre are on the same page. But you see, Mr. McIntyre, if you listen to what Mr. Campbell, if you listen to what Mr. McIntyre said, everything is about a committee, everything is about a study, everything is about bringing the community together. How many times are you going to do that? Didn't see Dr. Terence Farrell, the Economic Advisory Board. Everybody was so excited. Within a year, it was disbanded. Every time they have something, they're setting up a committee. But you know what? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And as far as
Exactly.
I could see, we eating nothing in Labrie, right? They had a joint select committee report. I ran through the report myself, the executive summary. And just what he said, the Airbnb, there's so many opportunities for the manager. You don't have to have a degree from university to open up an Airbnb. You don't have to have a degree in university to open up a roti shop or sell pilori. You don't have to have a thing to be selling pilau, but do it properly. You need somebody to train you and to make it first world. You can't come and doing things like back in the day and have a little shack And then people, this is a much more sophisticated traveler that you're looking at. They're not going to accept that. So you know that when you going to develop it, the museum, I asked McIntyre, and he can talk about it, because I went and saw a picture of the museum. So what you are saying, we are all on the same page. We are on the same page. To me, when we're talking just about Labre now, we're just talking about Labre now. Let's be pragmatic. If in fact the asphalt, whatever they're doing, it's not working up to now. You can say what you up to now is not working. So they're talking about it 5, 6, 7. This is 2017. They're talking about it and nothing happened. So if you want to believe in that, go then pigs could fly. All right. So if you want to believe, and that's what they do that's how they do. That's what they do all the time. Anytime they had a problem with COVID, we are setting up a committee to look into the problem with the COVID. We're setting up a committee. That's why they just shut you up. But they prove what, you know what he himself said, the Prime Minister said? You know what he said? In response to something that Kamala Prasad said in Parliament, he said the problem is over the laws. He said the problem is not passing the laws, it's the enforcement. He said that. I could quote him. He said it's the enforcement. That is what we're talking about right now. It's not enforcement, it's implementation. And I'll give you an example. Look at Jamaica. You know, they have a project with the IDB, a 5-year project, which is for, because I've written it down, GSC. But they have 3 tiers of information services. Backroom, they have the knowledge sector, and they have 3 sectors. They have opened up in the last year over 5,400 companies. It takes 3 days to open up a company in Jamaica. Why can Jamaica, they have 62,000 people that are employed in that industry, and they can boast, they said they have 20 quarters of positive growth. Jamaica has shown where there is a will. Stop telling me about a committee. Stop telling me that, because it's insulting to me. They're insulting. And for you, sorry to say this, Mr. Campbell, you know what I mean? It just really kind of insulting to tell people, oh, we're going to talk to the people. I mean, meeting with the people. I mean, hearing what the people are. That's buying time. Just buying time. Why don't you do something? Why does the Minister of Tourism do something really holistic? When Mauritius found themselves in the problems that we have, they had it with sugar, not oil, but they had it with sugar. And when they had it, and why I'm using Mauritius as an example is because they have a population similar to ours of 1.2 million around, and they have a similar ethnic grouping as we do. They have the same racial composition as Trinidad has. And they have turned that into such a positive. We are sitting down here and you're talking about this committee and that committee and MP and that. But meanwhile, while the grass growing, the cow starving. And that has been going on for the last 8 years. I don't understand how you don't understand that. And to be very honest, I'm to be very honest with you. It's not that I don't want them to succeed. I want them to succeed because if the people of the Bray get a proper plan, and it cannot, yes, you can ask the people to do. Of course, the people have to be invested in it. Of course, people have to work with it. But a lot of them need the training, they need the exposure, they need the support, they need the corporate citizens who are sitting down in a BIDCO to contribute to the development. They need a holistic, cohesive plan. Why Jamaica is doing it and we're not doing it? A set of committees, a set of plans. The same thing with LaBidco. I was reading about LaBidco, and they were saying, just may sound like I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but it's in the environs, talking about LaBidco and what LaBidco was going to do, create economy, create employment for mechanics, for people repair, dry docking. I mean, when you finish reading, all the good things are going to happen. 3.5% contribution to the GDP of the country. Man, when you finish reading what happening with LaBidco, you say, well, we read onto something. But guess what I read next? Well, guess what? NIDCO has gotten on this coastal something company, which is a consultant company that has to do environmental assessment. This is going on how long? How long is it going on? I had that big march. No, I understood that when they had a march over some ship that had been docked there, they were told the people they did not come for repair work. They were, because of the exact same reasons you said, we are outside the hurricane belt and all of that, so that they came there to wait out the time. But the point I'm making is, Why aren't these people? That's a different topic. But you know what is? It comes down to the same difference. It's the same difference. Stop telling me about your meeting with the community now, and you're having meetings with the community now, and you have plans upon plans. I was in government. How much plans? They could stock our room and plans, right? Why we cannot do it? Where is the implementation? And that thing with Lebre, I the few and I'll hold on it back to both you and Mr. McIntyre, because you all know the community better than I. But it seems to me, just like what you said, you could go Barbados and they have. I have gone to countries where they have nothing and they'll make it into something big. Who has the eighth wonder of the world? And you are sitting on that, and you cannot put together. And now you have the highway. Now we make it easier for people to come down there with tour buses and stay
Mhm.
overnight. Set up
Mhm.
and the Joint Select Committee recommended start a small mall, and the mall will sell food or ethnic food, but do it well. Do it well. Don't do it
Mhm.
because it's first class. You want a first class, first world experience. You're not going to keep people with because they could go Jamaica, they could go Barbados, they could go Antigua, and they have a first world experience. You're not going to go and bring them there and not doing it a first world standard. So they need to be shown how to do it at that level. And everybody will benefit. Everybody will benefit. And you don't have to have a degree to do that. But what is happening in the Brits up to today? Up to today, and a committee and meetings. They're committing and meeting themselves into 2025. I telling you that.
Well, that project you spoke about there, that dry dock environmental impact. Uh,
Yeah.
they gave us they had distributed a lot of leaflets or pamphlets. NITCO did that in collaboration with the Ministry of Works and Transport. A lot of people probably got it in their mailbox. Environmental impact assessment for proposed dry dock facility at La Brea. Now, this is set if there's any progress made at all with this mega project. The anticipated commencement date is 2029, right? So we don't know what will happen
2029.
2029. So
Oh, sorry, I had to laugh.
when I saw it and I read it, I said that
Okay,
okay.
I had to laugh.
But Labyrinth itself, I've been saying this for years on the radio, and Labyrinth itself could be self-sustainable. Mr. Campbell can
Yes.
endorse that. We can put a fence around Library and deal with the entire world. Because Library, I worked in the oil industry. I can tell you, there are lots of oil reserves in Library, via wells and offshore, the
I
marine
know, I've
front
heard
and all
that from
that.
other people.
Yeah, we have a beach that was
Yeah,
established.
but you know what? Sorry to cut you,
Mm,
David McIntyre and Henrik Campbell. I know because I was reading about the dry dock facility where they said there is pivotal to the diversification of Trinidad and Tobago. It's the coastal. The name of the company is the Coastal. Anyway, it's a local company, Coastal
yeah,
something something. That
the
Coastal
Coastal
Dynamics Limited.
Dynamics Limited.
Total
And they
dynamics,
said pivotal to the diversity of Trinidad and Tobago, enable the country to compete in the regional ship repair and refitting marketing for ships smaller than 150,000 tons, address demand for repair and refitting markets for ships between 150 to 300,000 tons. There are only three dry docks in the entire region. The benefits are employment for welders, electricians, mechanics, business participation for suppliers of steel, paint, electromechanical equipment, new career opportunities in ship repair and building sector, economic development for Labrie, and all of that good stuff. All I'm just saying is I just wanted to stick to the for the purposes of finding an immediate solution. The Pittsburgh right there. The Pittsburgh is right there. The highway now is actually can be used. In fact, it can be a positive to developing with the Ministry of Tourism a real tourist product that can employ a lot of these young people, a lot of people who do not have the skill sets to work in the same businesses that you talked about. Because after they constructed the Caribbean Gas Company Limited, what's the name, Caribbean Gas Services Limited, once it was constructed, there's expertise and a special knowledge, and all of it is coming from outside of the region, outside of La Brea. And now
Yeah.
with the highway, they can bypass La Brea. So let's take a reality check. Let us take what Labray is known for. So Walter Raleigh Cork, his ships there. Let us take and develop a real tourist hub. But you know, if you work in Barbados, it happened already. You know, if you went to make it happen already. You know that long time it happened already, right? All this
Right.
talk, 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 talk. Sorry, Mr.
Well,
Campbell, but I am really, I am tired of
no,
it.
you don't have to apologize to me. You're preaching to the choir, and and that is one of the reasons why, and that is, and Mr. David will be able to attest to that. We have been told many times, and I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about generations that we have been given plans, and we're going to do it for ourselves. And
Yeah,
when we do it for
but
ourselves
you
and we
are
bring it
foreign
forward,
exchange owner. You are a
when we bring
listen, Mr.
uh,
Campbell. It is not just a question of Labre becoming self-sustaining. Sabre can be a foreign exchange earner because the people you want to come are coming from the
of
United
course.
States and Canada.
No,
And
we're not
then you'll
looking
have a
at
little
just
bank set up there.
self-sustainability.
So the
We are not just
government
looking at
supposed to be leading
self-sustainability.
the
No, no,
charge.
no. We are looking at profitability, not just not just self-sustenance, but profitability. And as David rightly said, when it comes to look at Labra as a tourist destination, Labra has more than just the Pitch Lake. Labra has beaches. We have four beaches within
Stephanie
Labra.
Beach,
We have the Pitch Lake. We have green areas. There's even a
Devonport
small
Woodyard.
pitch volcano. We have beside there are large dams within Labra. There are springs within Labra.
Wow, I
Apart
didn't
from
even know that.
that, they're even
I
there
didn't
as a
even know
tourist,
that.
as a sports tourism. With Labra is one of the most a very successful football side. Pitchmen have been doing great things in different leagues. There are many areas where Labra succeeds. Labra excels, I should say. We are moving from just excelling and to being a point where we
We
can
are
succeed and
moving.
succeed financially.
Let me
We
tell
are
you,
moving.
Mr. Campbell, I'm going to tell you
Mm.
something. I think, in my respectful opinion, I'll let David come in and talk there because he's really involved with the tourism there. I believe if there is the commitment and the will by the government through the Ministry of Tourism that to facilitate the development, because at the end of the day, you will become a foreign exchange earner. You will also be able to deal with the socio-economic issues that Labre will have. People will have a sense of pride. People have a sense of ownership, but most importantly, contributing because the tourists you bring in, not only local tourists from Port of Spain who always think after they pass the lighthouse, they in South, right? Um, after the lighthouse, that's South, right? And they probably never even saw, Southern never even saw a carcass, right? Where's that? They don't. But anyway, let me not sing it, but let me not bad talk my own people. But anyhow, the point I'm making is I really truly believe if we had a government that was really committed, they could get foreign direct because you're sitting on a gold mine. If I was a foreign direct investor, I would sit down there and the Airbnb is one of the biggest money makers for so many people to make them. They don't even have to have another job. They can live off their Airbnb earnings. They can pay taxes off their Airbnb earnings. They can contribute in foreign exchange. So to me, I know you have a good football team. I don't used to play football, but sometimes it's good to focus on something so you get it right. And I feel right now one of your biggest focuses or foci or whatever is the correct English, I will say right now, no, because the Greek, what they say agenda and agendi and all of that kind of thing. And so all those purists that are listening to me, I know I may not have gotten it correctly. But what I'm saying is this is up the devil's woodyard. I said that, you can have the spillover. Because you know what they said? Just let me just say this last thing. They were saying about Dubai, which I did visit when you were looking at the International Financial Center, and it actually had an MOU with Lehman Brothers, and then the global financial crisis happened. What has happened with Dubai now? It has become a huge tourist destination for the high-end tourists. So what I am saying is, and now Dubai is as equally known for these huge AIG and these companies as it is with tourism. And I am saying there's so much opportunity if instead of focusing on all other things, let the Minister of Tourism and all the people who are they have UTT, Outer Lock Jack, CoStat, University of Wesley. Look, we have so many people who can contribute to developing a first world. It has to be first world, a first
Yes.
world product in La Brea, including the museum and so on, that it can turn around in La Brea. And then you can have this spillover effect into other communities where parents can have a spillover. But I think right now, that should be a focus for a thing. Not just selling, even if you're selling in Tulum, don't go and sell Tulum in a plastic bag with a piece of thing in the wrapper like that. No, you see, marketing is everything. Put it in an elegant box, package it in thing, and put it in a way that when they're paying $40 for something that it took you $5 to make. But guess what? The way it looking like $40.
No,
You
that's
understand what
that's a problem.
you understand what
Yes.
the sugar cake?
Yeah,
The
yes,
sugar
of course,
cake.
of course.
The sugar cake. Don't put the sugar cake in a bag and then put it in a piece of thing and then sell it at the side in a box, in a cart thing. No, you put the sugar cake, and that's where the outside thing, people who are well trained in these things, tell you how to package it, how to market it, how to put it online. Man, when you make your little sugar cake and put something fancy in it, something the coconuts from wherever, and you give a little storyline. They like to give you a storyline to something, right? And they give you a storyline. You paying $40, $50 for that sugar cake that you sit down in your kitchen, in your cottage, in your kitchen and make for $5. Anyway, I done talk. So let's hear Mr. McIntyre, because Mr. McIntyre is very strong on the tourism thing, and I asked him about the museum.
I have, like I said, I did a lot of proposals. I did a full proposal on the development of the pitch lake and the environs and the effects. The pitch lake, coming to tour the pitch lake doesn't really mean that you just coming to go for a walk on the pitch lake. There are a lot of connecting areas that is about the pitch lake and the effects of the pitch lake and all of that. But I've done a massive proposal about it. I have said it in detail to these ministry officials and all of that. Everybody likes it. Everybody likes
it. Mr. Campbell? Mr. Campbell?
Yeah. I've been to the CEO of Lake Asphalt. I've been to the MP for Library, and everybody just likes it. And they said, okay, we'll get back to you. We'll call you. And it's just a red tape and bureaucracy. So now that I've learned about the Library Association of Innovation, I want to give Mr. Campbell a little insight, because we don't have 6 minutes remaining. I want you to tell people what is the Library Association of Innovations and what you have on the drawing board, because I need to link up my association with your association so that we can form a stronger body, so that we can spread the word in the village and to people who are living within.
Give people hope. Give people a sense of there is. Listen, we can make it. We can make a good livelihood. You can, Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, and now that we have Miss Karen Tesheira working with us as well, we can even reach even further.
Get in government first. Before I was in government, it was
that is a real library, man. Here, lab.
It was going to happen.
Yeah, so tell us, Mr. Campbell.
So the Library Association for Innovation came out of that citizen jury aspect that I spoke about before. A corporate entity within the area decided that they would fund us coming together to discuss the issues of library and to basically push, with the assistance of an international consultant, to help us to formalize the way that we work. Move away from just doing these one-off projects to having a strategic plan for the development of library. We would have taken our time over a year and a half looking at different projects, looking at things that we can do, and then looking at what the issues within the community are. Being able to break it down and really understand where the source of these problems are, and then seeing what are the steps that we need to take in order to get from point A to point B. And we decided to focus heavily on innovation because, as you would know, David, one of the major aspects of library is that they are very entrepreneurial. We have a lot of persons within the area who would have small businesses here and there. And as Karen rightly said, you may have your tulum that you have in your bag that you're selling, or your mango at the side of the road. And we have seen over the past, and I can say specifically over the past 5 to 7 years, where persons have moved from the bottle without a label to a bottle with a label to
Yes.
proper packaging to
Yes.
now being sold on shelves in stores and
Yeah,
groceries.
but that's all. We
Yes,
have to go up the value chain, even more, because we want to
yes.
go to Harrods. That's where we want to go. We want to go. No, I'm serious. We
No,
want to go to
I don't
Harrods.
disagree with you at all. And that is
Right.
where we want to get them. So that's why innovation became the key
Yeah.
aspect to the name. Our next step is to develop an innovation hub in library. We want those persons with those ideas. Let us help you get your idea from idea to innovation. Let's build up a business plan. Let's build out the marketing and the branding and the everything associated with it. So that now we are not just talking about a thing to sell or a hustle. We're talking about industry and business.
Mhm.
That is where you want to go. And you know that it's not only alignment when it's not only aligned with just food, it's tourism, it's inventions, it's technology,
Festival.
all these things, festivals, and we have those, we have the core raw material within the community.
Yes, I
It's now
believe
time
that.
to take it from being just in the community to something that can now be a light to others to attract to come to the community. We are not going to be,
Exactly.
we want to export what it is we have. We want people to see library as we know library to be. And to sell that brand that is library to others outside of not just
And
library,
you
outside of
have a
Trinidad,
fantastic
international
brand.
aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that? Because I'm sure you're traveled. I'm
Yes.
sure all of us have traveled, right? And you, even if you want to say travel just in the Caribbean, and they will come and show you something. I've been to places like, in the States, and, by the time they finish telling you about this little, say, little rock, I'm being sarcastic, tell you about this little rock. The
Yeah.
rock have not, but by the time they finish, and they are trained, because I have
Yes.
gone on tours where they have used universities, lecturers who are on break from the university. So when they go on tours, when they finish giving you a tour on the background, the little leaflets, you have gotten such an education. So that's why I will say that whatever you do, which I believe in, I truly believe in it. I truly, truly believe in it. It has to be world class. It can't be Tulum in a bag.
Mhm.
It can't even be pepper sauce in a plastic bottle with a label. That is not going to make it a Harrods. When they took our cocoa, our Trintario cocoa, and they took the tea from India, and then they make all their fancy teas, not just the Tetley teas and the up-end teas, right? Because how they package it. That's how they make their money. That's how they make their money. And we have one of the best chocolates. I'm just trying to show you, I'm trying to indicate that there must be something, maybe because the pitch lake is a never-ending stream of pitch. Maybe you could package pieces of the pitch, put it in boxes, put a label, put a storyline. I don't know, but there's so much.
There are a lot of people who were
I mean,
doing craft.
I could go down there, no, but I can't. I'm not going to go down there at all.
Yeah, we are out of time, but I would like to send a signal to the Library Association of Innovation that I'm really interested in being part of this because I am really fed up of seeing library how it is as to how I knew it was before. All that I've heard about the group, I want to be part of it. I mean, Karen has taken great interest in developing the program today, but I am always talking about it whenever I get the time. I use the media to advocate on the problems that we are experiencing in library and why those problems arose. So I'm going to link up with Mr. Campbell, and I'm so happy that he came on board, and I find him to be
Thank
highly
you. Thank you,
knowledgeable.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes, and I'm so happy
Most
that he
welcome.
came on, and we're gonna work together, and we're gonna give you the good news, Karen.
What? What's your good
We're gonna
news?
give it. We're gonna give you the good news when I meet with Mr. Campbell, and we link up, and we start a.
And you want to make it happen. Make it
We're gonna make it
happen.
up.
We
We're
going
gonna make it
from, you see this government? Sorry, I'm sorry to say it, and I don't mean it in any other way. But I truly believe that when it comes to implementing, they are so weak on implementing. They make us ready. It is unfortunate that Labre is where it is today. And I'm sure I wish Labre the best. I was from down south, lived my formative years were down there. Yes, so I have an attachment to the south. Yes, Mr. Campbell, I have an attachment to the South. Right? My husband used to get back to me because I always saying every talent come from the South, down to Duke
It's
and
true.
all.
But it's true. It's the truth. It's
That is
very true.
true.
It's true. At
It
Egypt
is.
village, he used to get vexed. Anytime carnival, I have to say that. Anytime carnival, I say, so where you come from? Marshall from Siparia. Where black man like to party? Where you from?
Solid.
South. Where
Solid.
Crow from?
Sugar
South.
blue swords.
I mean,
It is the
everybody is
best.
from South. I said, what is this? Everything, even your prime ministers come from South. He used to get vexed with me. He used to
Yeah.
get vexed with me.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes,
all joking. It's 6 o'clock and we have to go. Thank you, Mr.
yes,
Campbell. It was a
yes.
pleasure having you on, and I hope we can take it. The next time I see you, you're going to tell me we have started implementing. But I just want to say one thing: when you do implement, look for first class. Don't settle for
Always.
anything else but first class. All right?
Always. Always.
Okay.
I want
Thank
to thank
you.
you, Karen. I want to thank you, Renrick. And I'm
Yes.
going to link up with you soon. And I'm going to send you information that I have, and I'll come meet with you. And you tell me when you have meetings and stuff. And
There we
we'll
go. Did I, you
available.
notice you didn't come?
Definitely. I look forward to
You're
it.
not sending it to me.
Yes,
Mr.
I said.
Campbell, you notice he did not, he not included me in the conversation. I'm like, I am.
No, this network extends to Karen. It has to include Karen, of course.
Exactly. Exactly.
All
Exactly.
right, anyway, I really do have to go. I don't want to get us in trouble. So, bye
Yes.
bye.
Okay.
Had a
Yes.
wonderful meeting, and thank you
Yes.
for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all for
Okay,
having
bye.
me.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
You pleasure.
That's it
Pleasure.
for
Bye
today's
bye.
edition of Hard Talk. Let me thank the people who came on. You got Raj Paul and Victor Varum, Suraj Mungal, and a whole lot of them who came on and put up their messages here. I sorry I didn't get to
Wonderful.
read them, but they all were in sync with what we were talking about. So I want to
Bye
thank you,
bye.
Karen. Thank you, Renrick, and we're going to meet soon.
Sure.
Okay, folks, that's it for today. We're going to have another edition tomorrow.